listening to another outstanding edition of the Stronger Marriage Podcast with your hosts, Trey and Lee Morgan.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us this afternoon. It's Trey and Lee, and we are so glad that you have tuned in on this Valentine's week. We thought we might talk a little bit about sex and intimacy, since that seems to be on everybody's mind this week.
I'm telling you what, that's I've been kind of excited about this week's podcast.
Oh, you know what I've been thinking? My kids are going to listen to this.
So if our kids are listening, welcome children. We have married kids age 30, 28, 24. He's single, and 18. I don't know if the two single boys listening, but we know the married sons and daughter-in-laws have been listening, and so this will be kind of fun. I'm curious to get their feedback on this week's podcast as their parents and in-laws talk sex and intimacy and marriage.
Yeah, they've sat through our workshop, so they know we talk about it, but yeah.
Makes it fun. Thank you for joining us. This is podcast number 3. We have had over 2,000 listeners for the first 2 podcasts, and we are honored that you are tuning in. Thank you for coming our direction and subscribing to the podcast each week and listening. We have loved the feedback. We've had a lot of feedback, just really good feedback from people that have told us they're enjoying and listening and wish we would do more than one a week. But right now, that is all we can do. But we appreciate that. Thank you for joining us and subscribing. We are now officially everywhere on whatever you use to subscribe to podcasts, whether it's iTunes and Apple or Android or Google or Spotify. We are there, and you can subscribe. So we're excited about that. We have officially got hooked up with all of those places, and we are good to go. So let's kick right in. Here's kind of where we're going to go today. We are going to label or call this podcast 5 Things Your Spouse Wants You to Know About Sex. And we're going to talk about 5 things for the husbands that your wife wants you to know, and 5 things, wives, that your husband wants you to know. And so we're going to look and kind of work through some of these things as we go on 5 things your spouse wants you to know about sex. But we want you to know that we doing workshops and speaking to thousands of people every year. Sex is a regular kind of topic for us, and we don't seem to get too embarrassed about discussing it anymore. Married sex is something that needs to be talked about. Nobody's really talking about it, and I think it's great when you can have healthy dialogue and conversation about married sex. We don't have to be embarrassed about it, and especially when couples can visit about it. God never created sex to be shameful. He created married sex as a gift. He shows up at the wedding ceremony and says, "I got a great gift for you. You're going to love it." And so that's kind of our direction. We did find out, a quick story for you. We found out we could still get a little embarrassed recently, or a while back. We happened to be at a store, and we had
our shopping trip.
Yeah, we had kind of worked our way over into the intimate section. I don't remember what we were doing, but we were over in the intimates and kind of looking through some stuff. And of course, I was liking that. I think I was saying, buy anything you want. And about that time, we had
a little, I don't know what, she's probably 85 years old, popped her head around the corner and said, "Gotcha."
Yeah, we didn't think we'd get embarrassed. We turned 2 or 3 shades of red. We knew this little 85-year-old woman. Actually, she goes to church with us, and she jumped out and said, "We caught you." And yeah, we got embarrassed. So that does still happen every now and then. But that made for a really good story. So let's kick things off. Let's kind of start for a second, and let's talk a little bit. Before we get in here, let's make a couple of disclaimers about married sex that you need to understand ahead of time. Generally, married sex or sex is pretty high on most men's needs list. And so oftentimes we talk about it, and you'll hear the world talk about sex for men is really important to them, but that's not always the case. Not in every marriage. Sometimes it reverses.
Yeah, we've had women come up to us at the end of our workshops and say, I wish y'all would address that women sometimes have a higher sex drive than their husbands. And, this happened 2 or 3 times, and I thought, I guess we ought to look into this. So newer studies have shown that about 23% of wives have a higher sex drive than their husbands. And so we do want to mention that. If you fall in that 23%, just know that there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. It's how God created you. And so if that's the case for you and your marriage, then just kind of flip-flop everything we're saying today.
If we talk about a husband with a higher sex drive, if you're the wife with the higher sex drive, just flip-flop it and make it work the other direction.
Yeah.
But we think married sex is really important. If you follow us on social media, people say y'all talk about sex a lot, and we do that for 2 reasons. One, nobody else seems to want to talk about it.
From a healthy
right standpoint. Yeah. And so we want to talk about it from the married sex side, and that we're not embarrassed about it. And so we think it needs to be discussed. The other thing that we think is really important is we think the longer we've been married, the more we realize how important intimacy is and sex is to our marriage. It's always been a part of our marriage, but I think it's been in the latter half, we've been married 31 years, in the latter half, that we've really been able to realize this is really kind of very, very good for our marriage and our relationship.
Yeah, I certainly didn't understand as a new bride, how important it was to you. And as a busy mom, I just didn't understand the importance of it at that time.
I think we've realized that we connect well, that sex is about a reconnection of a husband and wife. We'll talk about this here in a minute, but it's really been good for us it reconnects us, and it seems like it helps us to get along better. We like each other better. It's really what intimacy separates roommates from soulmates. And that's one of the big differences. So let's kick in. We're 7-8 minutes into this podcast. We ain't even got to point number 1. So we're talking 5 things that your spouse wants you to know about sex, and we're going to talk to the husbands first. So we'll kick off with husbands. Husbands, 5 things that your wife wants you to know about sex. And I'll let Lee take off with number 1, and then I'll jump off here in a minute and follow up.
Okay, so romance leading up to sex should start before bedtime. Guys, if you're waiting until you climb into bed to turn on the romance, you have waited way too long.
Yeah, it starts early in the day. Men and women are really created. God created you very, very different. And we talk in our workshops that men are like microwaves. They heat up really quick. And women are more like slow cookers. It is an all-day process.
It is an all-day process. Sex for women is a very mental thing, and we have to prepare ourselves mentally, which it's very helpful for us. If you kind of drop some hints earlier in the day and say, I sure would like to rock your world tonight, honey.
Something along those lines. But when you're looking at women and the way that God has created them to be, little things that you can do, throughout the day to send a text message, call for no reason, drop by her workplace and bring her favorite coffee. Just romance has got to lead up to bedtime, meaning you've heard the old phrase of sex starts in the kitchen, that just means that your wife wants to be romanced in places other than the bedroom. She wants you to bring her flowers. She wants you to do sweet things for her. She wants a sweet text message. Most women lack all of those things. And it can be frustrating for women who the only time they feel like they are pursued by their husband is when they want sex. And so you really need to do a good job romancing your wife way before bedtime.
Yeah, give us your good list of how to turn on a man and how to turn on a woman.
Okay, I'll do that. We had a friend one time, we talk about this in our book, the long version of the story, but we had a friend one time, we got tickled at him because we went over to his house, and everything he had bought a lot of pumpkin spice stuff. He had pumpkin spice coffee, pumpkin spice this, and we got to laughing going, what's up with all the pumpkin spice stuff? And he was a little embarrassed. His wife said, basically said, well, he heard that pumpkin spice was an aphrodisiac, and so he's just bought me all this pumpkin spice stuff. And we just laughed and laughed. Now, first, let me just tell you, pumpkin spice isn't an aphrodisiac, but there are some things out there that are. Although, it is fun now to buy your wife some pumpkin spice creamer, or sometimes we go in the coffee shop and I'll say, don't you want some pumpkin spice coffee today? But here's some pumpkin spice items, meaning here's some slow cooker item things that you can do, guys, that are turn-ons. They're aphrodisiacs. For example, give your wife a back rub. Do this on a regular basis. Offer a back rub or a foot rub. Offer to clean up the kitchen or to cook supper. One of the things that she'll love, if she's a regular with manicures and pedicures, drop by and buy her a gift certificate for a manicure or a pedicure. And some men do this when they're in trouble, or in the doghouse, to kind of go, wow, I'm really so. Do this for no reason. Help her pick up the house, do a chore she doesn't like to do, surprise her with her favorite candy, call her to say hello, line out a babysitter and take your wife on a date, compliment your wife every day, hold her hand. Those are all aphrodisiacs. Most wives love all of those things. Those are all things that lead up to romancing your wife, in the bedroom at nighttime. And if you're showing up at bedtime and you're just now turning on the slow cooker, nothing cooks that quick. I mean, you can't sow the seeds of romance at the last second and expect it to heat up like it is. Does that make sense?
So how do you turn on a man? Finish that off.
You do all those things for
women.
Usually, if you want to know how to turn on a man, most of the time you just show up naked. Yeah, that usually will work. Somebody said show up naked with food, but I'm not even sure that you need food.
Food's probably not required.
Food's probably not even required. So that usually works for a lot of men. But so make sure you pursue her before bedtime. Number 2, what your wife wants you to know.
Number 3.
Oh, you're right. We've already got that. Number 3, don't make it all about you. Husbands, don't make it all about you. Even if you're the one with a higher sex drive, it is not just about getting your needs met. It is about also meeting your wife's needs as well and letting her enjoy it as well.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, this is going to require a little bit of education on your part. It's certainly going to require communication between the two of you. But, pick up a good book on the subject and educate yourself. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that is.
It does not have to be, trial and error. Educate yourself ahead of time and then communicate.
Yeah. Talk about what works, what feels good, what doesn't work. All these things are okay to talk about. And as we often say in our workshops, it gets better. Don't give up. It just gets better all the time. But don't make it all about you. Make sure she is enjoying it as well. Number 4, on things your wife wishes you knew about sex.
Hygiene is really important to women, I think.
What is that? What do you mean by hygiene?
Well, guys tend to think maybe that things like grill smoke and fresh cut grass.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, what else do you think smells good?
Diesel, car grease.
Really, to women, those things don't smell all that great. I think that we probably prefer, soap, toothpaste, those kinds of things.
So what are you saying?
Smell good for your spouse when you come to bed.
Take a shower,
brush your teeth, shave. Nobody wants to snuggle up next to an old goat.
Well, that's the truth. I like that. So hygiene is really, really important. Let's do number 5. Number 5, intimacy is more than just sex. For your wife, husbands, understand, intimacy is more than just sex, and that doesn't always work for the men. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute, but for women, intimacy is more than sex. There's things that lead up to it. For example, there has got to be about communication, about trust, about loyalty. Your wife wants to be intimate more than just sexually with you. And that's why things like communication is so important. For you to be mentally and verbally intimate means, when you come home from work and she says, how was your day? And you go, it was good. What'd you do today? Nothing. She really wants to know about your day. She wants you to ask her about her day. She needs you to communicate with her. She needs you to have intimacy with her that's more than just sex. And it's important that you have that mental intimacy, that you do that communicating and you get to know each other. That comes through dating and spending time with one another and finding common interests where you've built a friendship. That is so important to wives, that intimacy is more than just sex.
Yeah. Openness is very, very important. Share your thoughts, your hopes, your dreams, your feelings. I know guys don't like to always share their feelings, but your wife wants to know how you're feeling, what your feelings are.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm feeling right now, but all right. So 5 things. Husbands, romance leading up to sex should start before bedtime. Pursue your wife in other places than just the bedroom. Don't make it all about you. Hygiene is important. And then number 5, intimacy is more than sex to her. She needs you to communicate, to spend time with her, quality time, take her on dates and stuff.
Okay. So tell us what the husbands want to know.
So husbands or wives, what your husband wants you to know is that sex and intimacy is so much more fun when you enjoy it too. And that may require also a little work from you too, to say, hey, I really liked this, or this worked well for me. But they want you to be a willing participant as well, if that makes sense. Let me give it to you another way. If we were talking communication, and we were if you went into your husband and said, hey, we haven't sat down and talked in a while. Could we have a little bit of time to sit and visit for a second? Can you imagine a husband going, big sigh, and then saying, we just talked like 4 or 5 days ago, and all you ever want to do is talk, and you'd be frustrated if your husband kind of took that way, or that idea about it. And can you imagine your husband going, all right, fine, we'll, I got 5 minutes. What do you want to talk about? You'd be going, well, I don't want to talk if that's the way it's going to be. And your husband doesn't want you to be intimate if it feels like a job or a chore. And they want you to participate and enjoy things as well. And you may have a husband with a high sex drive that is always pursuing you. I think you should really, really be thankful for that. We meet lots of women sometimes that tell us how frustrating it is that their husband doesn't pursue them. And there are worse things in this world than having a husband who would love nothing more than just to make love to you every day. It would be a lot worse if you had a husband that just wasn't interested at all. So it's more fun when you enjoy it as well. Number 2, wives, be confident. Be confident. Confidence is sexy. Be willing to try some new stuff. Again, communicate what works, what doesn't work. Can you think of something on being confident down here?
Well, I keep thinking about, we keep saying communicate. This did not come easy for us because we did not grow up in homes that talked about sex. I mean, this was just like, it was a taboo subject.
If something come on TV was about sex, somebody was supposed to turn that off.
Yeah. I can remember the awkward moment when my mom gave me the talk, and I mean, it was like one and done. That was it. And she waited so long. I probably already knew most of what she brought up in the first place. So, if you come from a place like us where it's a little uncomfortable, I don't know, just get past that, because it's worth it to really open up and communicate with each other.
God's not embarrassed with you talking about sex with your spouse. One of the things we're going to talk a lot about in a minute, there's a fantastic book by Dr. Kevin Leman called Sheet Music, and that's spelled SHEETMUSIC. And we have read this book, and it was really good for us, even after we'd been married 20-something years, because he is pretty plain and clear and straightforward on a lot of things that deal with sex. And as we have mentioned in other podcasts, we read books together, meaning we read a marriage book, and Lee will read some and I'll read some, and then we'll talk about it. And he made us talk about a bunch of stuff that we weren't real comfortable talking about. And sometimes if you can do that, find a book that you can read together where you can talk about some stuff, and that book is a great book to do that. But be confident. Surprise him with this is like Valentine's week, and I don't know if you're a lingerie person or not, but surprise him with some lingerie. Be spontaneous. Flirt with him. He loves all those things. We met. Let me tell you one more story, and we'll move on to the next point. We met a lady and her husband at a workshop one time, and they came up to us and visited with us between sessions. And she said, "Let me tell you what I like to do to my husband." And I said, "Shoot, go ahead, tell us." And she said, I like to go to the drawer that I keep all of my lacy and sheer lingerie in, and once a week or so, I will take out something different. I lay it out on the bed, and I take a picture of it, and then I just send it to my husband at work with a message that says, "I'm planning on wearing this tonight to bed." She was grinning, and he was grinning too, and she said, "There's two things that I know anytime I do this is going to happen. Number one, he's going to come home early. And number two, he's going to come home in a good mood." And then he piped up and he said, "I can't concentrate all day long when I get those pictures," but he loved it. What a fun way to have in your marriage, to flirt like that, and just being able to say he was grinning from ear to ear through that whole thing, and I know he was loving it. But be confident in that. Number 3.
Girls, don't obsess about the way you look. We tend to stress about our bodies, especially when we're being intimate. And man, TV and magazines and whatnot, they throw out these gorgeous women, and we feel like, hey, we got to look like those people on TV. And let me just say that there are very few people that actually look like that in this world. And so don't compare yourself to that. Don't compare yourself to anybody. Just be comfortable in your own skin and know that your husband really does think you're sexy.
Yeah, thinks you look absolutely amazing. You probably noticing or focusing on your flaws, and your husband doesn't see that at all. He just loves seeing you. Men are very, very visual, and there is nothing more exciting than when your wife is very visually pleasing with her husband. And so don't obsess about the way that you look. And husbands, let me make 2 quick points. Husbands, regularly compliment your wife on how amazing she looks. Let her know she's beautiful. Let her know you love her curves. Let her know her body is amazing, because she may be telling herself otherwise. She needs to know from you that you think she looks incredible. And let me throw this out there, because hopefully there's not any men like this that are listening to this podcast. And if this is you, you hear this well, and don't you ever do this again. But men, it is never ever your place to take pop shots, to make pop shots about your wife's body. And what that means is you don't pick on her about her weight or her hips or her rear end or whatever it is, and make these snide comments about her body, and then you kick back and go, "Well, I don't know why she doesn't ever want to show me her body." Well, it's probably because you have gone about it the wrong way, and you should be telling her how incredible she looks. But ladies, you don't obsess about it, and husbands, you remind your wife regularly she looks incredible. Number 4, wives, be willing to initiate. This is really an interesting point. Anytime we bring up initiating sex, men and women both have lots of opinions on this, and we basically feel this ought to be a mutual thing. How often you're having sex should not be decided upon by the one with the lesser sex drive, whoever that might be. Meaning, it needs to be a mutual thing you decide. If a wife says twice a week is enough, and a husband says I'd really like 4 times a week, y'all need to meet in the middle at about 3 times a week. And so be willing to initiate, both parties. If your husband has a higher sex drive, he loves when you initiate, because that makes him feel so good. And husbands, if you're the one with a higher sex drive, you can't just walk around going, "Well, I'm always ready. I'm just waiting her to say something." You have got to do more than that. You have got to let her know, "Hey, this would be a great day for me. You've got to drop those hints or just come right out and say something. You cannot just expect her to, she should know I'm always in the mood.
Yeah. Can I share just a small little quote from this sheet music book about what Dr. Kevin Leman says about this? He says, for most men, the greatest enemy of sex is a lack of imagination on the part of their wives. If a man doesn't feel pursued or wanted, or if his wife is unable or unwilling to communicate how much she enjoys being with him and how much she wants his body, hubby loses interest. Your husband wants to be needed and wanted and prized. He's like a little boy in that regard. Like a little boy in lots of regards, but but seriously, but men need to know that you value them and you prize them and you want them.
Yeah. Good point. Be willing to initiate. Now your husband doesn't know when you're in the mood. So if you're in the mood, you need to let him know. And I'll remind you, ladies, if you're going, well, how do I know if my husband is in the mood? Remember, he's a lot like a microwave. And most likely, if he's got air moving in and out his lungs, if he's not in the mood, he will be in about a minute.
It won't take him long.
No, it won't take him long. Number 5, sex is more than just physical for men. Sex is very emotional. Sex improves intimacy and connection for husbands. It lets your husband know that you are still in love with him. If he's constantly being rejected, he's thinking, boy, I'm just not much of a man anymore. It is more than a physical connection. It is how he connects with you emotionally, much like maybe conversation is with you. And we may try to get to it next week in some Q&A, but oxytocin that flows when you have sex with your spouse, there's a bonding agent that just says, this is my man and this is my woman, and this connects you as husband and wives, and it is much, much more than physical. Remember that when it comes to married sex, being with the same person over and over doesn't mean stale or boring. It just means you've learned how to rock your spouse's world, and that's a good thing. So those are 5 things for husband, 5 things for wives. We're going to throw out another thing. We try to stick to about 30 minutes, and if we go over a few minutes, that's all right. We want to throw out some ways real quickly. These come straight out of our book, 10 Ways to a Stronger Marriage. This is in our chapter 6 called Let's Get Naked. And it ties in with chapter 5 and being naked and feeling no shame. It was Genesis chapter 2. But we're talking 9 ways to ruin your sex life. And this is really, really important. We're going to run through these really quick. 9 ways to ruin your sex life because we don't want that happening. Number 1, we think one of the quickest ways to kill intimacy in your marriage is to allow your kids to sleep in your bed with you. And we know that that's some folks just go, no, we like co-sleeping, that sort of thing. We're not here to argue about that, but I'm just telling you, if your kids are in bed with you every night at 8:30, 9 o'clock, that's hard on intimacy. And you've got to figure out a way to get your kids in their bed. It's one thing if they show up at 3 o'clock in the morning because they had a bad dream, or if they occasionally want to sleep in the room with you. But if every night your kids are in your bed, that is really a quick way to ruin your sex life. Another one is don't make privacy a priority.
I think for women that's probably more important, even more so than for men.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Meaning every master bedroom door should have a lock on it. It really should. If you're listening to podcasts right now and you're going, my master bedroom door doesn't have a lock on it, you stop on your way home if you're driving and you pick up a lock for your bedroom door. And when you and your spouse go to bed, and on those nights when the kids are down early, you lock that door without having to worry about somebody coming in on you. We had little kids. We had multi-toddlers at one time, and putting kids down at bed at night with hopes of getting some us time was like the whack-a-mole game. You get one kid down and one pops up. And so when you finally get them all down, you think, we finally got some time. Go lock that door.
Yeah, give yourself some peace of mind that they're not going to come busting in.
Yeah, and as teenagers, we always like to say, you can't put your teenagers to bed at 8:30. So sometimes you just have to look across the room and yawn really big and kind of make that eye contact with your spouse and go, "We're really tired, boys. We are headed to bed. Y'all turn out the lights and lock the door on your, when y'all go to bed. And man, you go to the room and you lock that door behind you, and they may say something along the lines of, it's only 9 o'clock, but hey, we're really tired that night, But make privacy a priority. A couple more.
Another way you can ruin your sex life is to let yourself go. We talked earlier about how important physical hygiene is. We're not saying you have to look like you looked when you first got married. We understand that age and gravity can do really cruel things to your body, but just do your best to be the best version of yourself that you can be. Take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. Girls, we mentioned that men are very, very visual, and so don't always sleep in the big oversized t-shirt. Go to that little special drawer every once in a while.
Yes.
Also, I think this one's pretty important. If there is anything physical, emotional, whatever it may be, that is keeping you from having the best intimacy that you can have, don't ever be ashamed, embarrassed, afraid to go see a doctor, to go see a counselor. There's help out there. There is medical help out there. There is good professional advice that can help you through whatever problems you may be having, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever it is.
Yeah. For men, quick blood test and checking some testosterone levels, and your doctor can have you back on track in no time.
Yeah.
It is important that you do those things. Stop flirting.
Oh, men love it when you flirt. Women love it. Yeah. Love to be flirted with as
Roommates don't flirt. Soulmates do.
Yeah. So keep flirting.
Say no to sex more than you say yes. That's a killer. Try not to say no more than you say yes. A lack of communication. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to discuss it.
It's necessary.
It is necessary. It is healthy.
Another way is to make everything more important than sex. And this is hard in this busy day and age that we live in. Man, we go 90 miles an hour, and we're so involved with, the kids have sports and all these different activities they're involved in, and you're working full time, and you're, taking them to games and practices and volunteering for all kinds of things, and you find yourself dropping in bed exhausted every night. That's not healthy for your sex life either.
True.
That, Dr. Kevin Leman says in his book Sheet Music, is the number one enemy of sex for women: busyness and weariness. So it's okay to reprioritize. If you need to let some activities go so that you have more family time, so that you're not gone every single night of the week, that's just not a healthy lifestyle to live. So it's okay to let some things go, to say no to some really good activities, because the time you spend with your family is very important. And making time for intimacy. So, making sure you're not so exhausted when you go to bed every night. That's important.
You can't just be mom and dad all the time.
Exactly.
You've also got to be husband and wife.
We could spend a whole lot more time on that. Maybe we will in a future podcast.
Yeah.
Another way you can ruin your sex life is to get stuck in a rut. That's easy to do. But
can I throw something out there?
Throw something out there.
As Christians, and being raised in homes where we didn't talk about sex a lot, that's just all new when you start trying to communicate stuff. But I think I kind of caught you off guard once in a workshop. It just kind of hit me. Christian sex does not mean the lights have to be out. You got to be under the covers, missionary position. You don't have to get stuck in a rut.
Yeah, I think I thought, whoa, did he just say that?
Yeah. So I mean, change it up. Try some new stuff. Enjoy one another's bodies.
Yeah. Just a little shout out right here to a new company called Frisky Friday Box. They sent us a little box of goodies, and we just received it, and we're anxious to check it out. But it's just got kind of fun intimacy things, ideas in each box they get. They send one
One a month?
Once a month.
One a month, and they send you 2 or 3 things in there to enjoy with kind of some, here's how to do this.
Yeah, so, I mean, talk about getting out of a rut. Frisky Friday box, that could be a lot of fun for some couples.
We're going to put that link in our podcast notes so that you can find that, and we're going to do a review over that here pretty soon and give them a shout out on our Instagram page is probably where that's going to be.
Last one.
Yep.
Make it all about you. I think you talked about that a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I did. So make sure your spouse enjoys it just as well.
Mutually satisfying. That's your goal.
Mutually satisfying is important. You know, everybody's talking about sex in the world. Every song's about sex. Movies are about sex. TV shows are about sex. I mean, it's just everywhere. Everybody's talking about sex, but sometimes married couples are not talking sex. And if anybody ought to be talking sex, it should be us. And it is a important part of your marriage and your marriage relationship. And we want you to take it very, very serious. Because again, it's an intimacy that connects soulmates and differs between roommates and soulmates. We've actually gone longer than our regular 30 minutes. We're about 6 minutes over. I had asked folks for some questions because I wasn't sure how long this would last. We're still new at this, knowing how long of material that we've got. And we've got a bunch of questions, and I think what we may do in the next 2 weeks is just have a Q&A show for about 30 minutes of doing Q&A. We've had questions. We had some great questions that came out, like if I have pain during sex, what I do about that? If my husband is unable to have sex, what can we do? I really enjoyed how this one wife said, how can I talk my husband into going south on me? She was talking about oral sex, and somebody asked if oral sex was a sin, and I think we're going to cover that in a week or so on some Q&A. The Bible talks about oral sex a lot, but for some reason there's some folks out there that have been told that it's a sin. So we may talk a little bit about that. But we're going to do some Q&A, not just with intimacy questions. We've had some with how do I get over a spouse that has broken trust or cheated or having an affair. And so we'll cover some of those going up. I'll remind you that Valentine's Day is Friday, and dinner and a movie, or dinner and a little bit of romance and just some time is a healthy thing. Now, understand, don't wait until Valentine's Day to romance your spouse every year. If the only time you ever romance your spouse, you're failing about 364 other days out of the year. Valentine's Day should be something that is a regular part of your marriage, meaning the things you're doing on Valentine's Day, whether it's intimacy or lingerie or dates or flowers, that should be a regular part of a healthy marriage, not just one day a year or a birthday. Make that a part of who you guys are. Build a strong, healthy marriage. I've enjoyed talking a little bit about intimacy and sex, and hopefully my daughter-in-laws and kids are just not too embarrassed.
They may skip this episode.
We have a web address, Stronger Marriage Podcast, the StrongerMarriagePodcast.com. So if you're trying to share this, the StrongerMarriagePodcast.com. I want to remind you, if you want to know more about our book, it is thestrongermarriagebook.com. The name of the book is 10 Ways to a Stronger Marriage, and you can always find everything about us on our webpage, which is strongermarriageworkshops.com. We are honored you've come our direction and that you've hung out with us today, and we always like it when you spend time with us and all that kind of good stuff. Yes. Can you think of something else we want to add?
No, we apologize. We went a little longer than we intended to go. We have said we are going to try to keep these all at about 30 minutes, but I don't know. We felt like we needed to go ahead and cover all of what we had planned to cover today. So thanks for hanging in there with us.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, we appreciate it too. Y'all have a blessed week, and we will see y'all next Wednesday.